to turn in the direction of Folly and go over to Coles Island like it had done every day for the last 2 weeks. That was normal Confederate ship behavior. But instead, here's where Robert Smalls has to make his move. So he has to break, instead of going down here to Folly, he has to go this way because he's headed to the blockading vessels. And once he does that, Fort Sumter realizes this is not right, there's something wrong here, and they start firing, but Planter's already far enough away. But what's in front is going to require this. So now Hannah Small's flag is hoisted on Planter because she's making way to the blockade. The blockade is fixing to blow her out of the water because they're being rammed by a gunship that they know to be a ship of war, and they expect this kind of thing from the Confederates. So the onward with Lieutenant Nickerson, he beats to quarters. That means, we're going to die. Get on your station. So he's ready to fire upon the Planter until he sees this come out of the fog. And his lookout sees this. And his lookout, being gone, got a good look and says, there's a white flag. I see a white flag. Nickerson says, hold your fire. And then they see this. This is the figurehead on the onward. This is Liberty. This is Lady Liberty. I just find this unbelievable that the vessel that he goes to has Lady Liberty for the figurehead. That, of course, is not the actual one. But it looked like that. So he is, Robert Smalls arrives at Onward. Onward accepts him, and Onward is astonished because there are men and women and children dancing on the deck and singing. And so the Confederates are not so pleased. Planter gone. This is a remark from a local Charleston newspaper, and the story in there is all about the depravity of this act and the inattention to duty and dereliction to duty of the Confederate officers that left the Planter in the hands of the enslaved persons who stole the Planter. So there's a lot of information that you'll find about the distress that this caused. This Planter has been labeled disgusting treachery by the Confederates, yet the remark here, this is from a New York paper, and it's dispatches that the flag officer DuPont will eventually write about this, that the capture of the Planter was made, and the Planter is bringing intelligence to the Union, and the Union is able to then make their incursions on the defenses of Charleston because they had the military intelligence that the Stono River was now open for attack. So Robert Smalls is said to have told Nickerson on the Onward, I bring you a present for Mr. Lincoln. That's because of the guns and the armament that were being delivered. The admiral, this is handwriting of his scribe, not the admiral himself. Back then they, of course, couldn't type, so they had handwritten logs. And what he's writing here is, this man, Robert Smalls, is superior to any who have come into our lines. Intelligent as many of them have been, his information has been most interesting, and portions of it of the utmost importance. Admiral DuPont. What he's referring to is the intelligence. Where are the torpedoes? Where are the obstructions? Where are the telegraph lines? Where the whole military picture of Charleston Harbor is delivered to the Union officers by our hero, Robert Smalls. And he's also sent on a tour that includes meeting with President Lincoln, and it is said that Lincoln asked him why he did it. And there was a one-word answer to that from Robert Smalls to President Lincoln: freedom. That's why he did it. Robert Smalls went to a tour in New York City. He is given medals and honors for his bravery and the success. He has a career of public service that would take us several meetings to go through. He will be returned after this goodwill tour back to the Union. They will make him an officer on several other vessels. He will be given some prize money along with his fellow enslaved persons that took the planter out, and he will save all of those funds. I'll tell you in a minute what he does with some of it. He is going to be eventually involved in politics, and he is a major force in public education in the country, starting here. And he is also recognized now. There's a modern day planner. It's called the Major General Robert Smalls, because he was given a commission as a United States officer in the Army, because it's actually the Army who's in charge of vessels of this nature, not the naval forces. And this is what happened to some of the prize money from the planter. Robert Smalls was able to, in free days, buy the home in Beaufort where he was born, an enslaved man. This is pretty amazing. And there is a very poignant story about this that shows an incredibly gracious side of Robert Smalls. The woman who enslaved him, Mrs. McKee, became feeble and fell into senility. And she showed up on the doorstep thinking this was still her home. This is years later, after the Civil War. And Robert Smalls was kind to her and brought her inside, and she lived the rest of her days there. You think about that. That's just grace that he did that. And this is an exhibit that you could visit in Washington, and I hope to get the chance to do this. This is in the new museum that is up there. So these are some words. The term contraband is up here, and I put that on my first slide. That meant somebody who made it from slavery to the Union lines. They were called contraband. They were not yet called citizens. They were called contraband. So here's a Sea Island contraband song, and some of the words: slavery chain done broke at last, broke at last, broke at last. I'm going to praise God till I die. Slavery chain done broke at last, broke at last. I'm going to praise God till I die. So that's a little bit of the story. Thank you for the chance to tell you.
Now, please give a warm welcome to Dr. Amy Hudak, who will present our guest illustrator, followed by the moment that we've all been waiting for. It's our free books raffle. So everyone, your red tickets, do you have them? Get them out.
I have the absolute pleasure of introducing to you an important South Carolina artist. Jonathan Green, a native of Gardens Corner, South Carolina, has gained acclaim as one of the most important contemporary artists of the Southern experience. His work has been exhibited and collected internationally and appears in his book, Gullah Images, The Art of Jonathan Green. Green has been honored with the NAACP Image Award Key of Life, the Elizabeth O'Neill Verner Award of the South Carolina Arts Commission, the South Carolina Order of the Palmetto, and other accolades. So join me in welcoming Jonathan Green.
Good day, everyone. This is my second time here at Trident Technical College. I first came here around 5 or 6 years ago for the Clemente class program, and it's a pleasure to be back here again. What an incredible story told about Robert Smalls. I would say, please give Doc another hand. For me, the incredible difference of this story, I went to school at Robert Smalls High School in the 60s. And Robert Smalls, the great Robert Smalls, as we knew of him in high school, was always a legendary hero to us. The school was named after him. We knew he lived in Beaufort. We knew about his story. And in the day when I was in early school, there was no Black History Month or program. It was just Black history in our schools. We were taught about our own history and our own culture. And that was, for people that are now in their, I suppose, 50s and 60s, that's a very important story to be able to go to a school amongst people that look like you, that have been a part of history and culture in America since the 1600s, that we all knew about. You know, most African Americans still carry the names of people from the 16 and 1700s. So if you want to know the names of presidents, just go into the Black community, into a Black church, or look in your telephone books, and those names will still appear in Black families. This book that I was asked to illustrate, and let me give you the story how it happened. Be very careful when someone asks you to help them to do something. My friend, Dr. Louise Merriweather, who is a well-known writer, she lives in New York City today. She is 96 years old and still very active. When I called her about 3 weeks ago when it was freezing and snowing in New York City, she was on her way out to play poker at 96 in the snow. That's the kind of lady that wrote that book. And she herself is from this area. So she said, Jonathan, I have this children's book about the great Robert Smalls, and I would love to have it published. And for some reason, she assumed that I would be able to help her to get this book published. Well, she wasn't far off wrong with that. I simply asked the University of South Carolina, especially after Mr. Pat Conroy had started a children's division at the University Press, which had just recently started. And I asked them if they would be interested in this book, and of course, unanimously they said yes, they would love to do it. So I thought my job was done. Wouldn't you say my job was done? To get the book published? Well, no, it wasn't. Dr. Merriweather called me and said, Jonathan, I received the contract to have the book published by the University of South Carolina, and I'm delighted to do it, but I would only do it under one condition. How can you say no to a 94-year-old woman? It's impossible. No matter how busy a schedule you have, and mine is busy, you just cannot say no. And also, mind you, I had attended the Robert Smalls High School. I knew about the great Robert Smalls. I even know his present family today. So for me, it was an arduous, beloved project to be able to illustrate about someone that I knew about all of my life growing up in Gardens Corner, South Carolina, Beaufort County, so it was a pleasure. The awards that were listed about me is not just because of my art. It's also because of my activities within my community. I started a project called the Low Country Rice Culture Project, which is a project simply to help us understand more about history. If we're looking at a place and a time of people where 40 to 60% of the population was that of African people. And I say African people rather than enslaved or slaved people because they were Africans. They were brought here against their will, most of them, at your age and younger. So if you can imagine at your age being taken away from your villages, your cities, your families, from the continent of Africa, and put on a boat, chained, hardly fed, very little movement for weeks at a time. 4 to 6 weeks chained on a boat at your age, removed from your villages, your communities, never to see your family again. That's what America did to Africans. And that went on for about 250 years. And what happened in those 250 years? Look around you. Look at the city of Charleston, for instance. Every building of any historical significance on this peninsula was built by Africans, maintained by Africans, serviced the families by Africans. Let me break it down for you. This would include the materials gathered, made. This would include foodways, medicinal, daycare, wet nursing. These were the jobs that your ancestors have done for over 300 years. And it took the bravery of a Mr. Robert Smalls to incite freedom for you. That's the only reason why you're here in this auditorium today. It's because of Mr. Robert Smalls. And you need to know and understand that. So when you walk throughout the city of Charleston, know that your ancestors laid every brick on a building that is considered a historical treasure. Know that your ancestors worked the interior of these buildings, took care of the owners of the buildings, and still many said could not read or write. But then look at the churches. Look at Mother Emanuel. Look at Morris Street. Look at Morris Brown. Those churches are from the 17 and 1800s, to which encompassed great African families in the city of Charleston. And African people just did not go down without a fight. Africans fought every day of their lives in the South to bring about a change in the South that we now all appreciate. Europeans continued to come into South Carolina for over 200 years, but the foundation was already set by the Africans. And that's the part of history that many of you do not know. And the only way you will get to know it is by simply opening a book and being interested in reading about your history and your culture in the line of a place called America, to which you had no freedom, you had no privacy, you had no friends, and you were locked, chained. The only way you could move around is if you possessed a tag around your neck. And that tag was in the shape of a diamond. That's the only way you could move throughout the city streets of Charleston, even though your ancestors did everything. Even though your ancestors were the guardians of the churches, of all the churches, because they were the people that worked in them, that maintained them, that had it prepared for the white citizens. It was the African people. So the Low Country Rice Culture Project was just a way of saying, if we're going to talk about history and culture, then let's talk about economics. Let's talk about what people did and the monies that was made. Not necessarily the monies that was made for and given to them, but that the monies that were made because of them, which made Charleston the wealthiest city in America for over 100 years, based on agriculture, based on rice, cotton, tobacco, lumbering. Charleston, the wealthiest city in America for over 100 years. That means it was wealthier than New York and Philadelphia because of rice mainly. So what they did was they simply removed from the west coast of Africa people in the hundreds of thousands and even estimated millions. Again, going back to your age. That's how those people were removed. There were so many people that died during the Atlantic voyage throughout that time period of about 200 years. It changed the migrational pattern of the shark. It changed the migrational pattern of the shark. That's how many people were moved from the continent of Africa. And for the hundreds of thousands that were brought here, millions were taken to South America and the Caribbean and the sugarcane fields. That's what the continent of Africa produced. The continent of Africa produced the wealth, the sophistication, and the elitism of the world. And Africa is still a place that is constantly being used and abused by the world. And out of the Low Country Rice Culture Project, we're working on another project, which is called Posthumous American Citizenship Project. That's where your ancestors, by you, received the opportunity of being Americans. Because they're scattered out on those graves. There are some 550 historical plantation sites today that get some type of government assistance. And we are locked away from all of them, which means that the burial grounds of these plantation sites are the burial grounds of our ancestors, and we can't even go on them to visit or to say a prayer or thank you. So the American Citizenship Project is giving citizenship to the people that did all the work, that are responsible for you sitting in those chairs, by the hundreds of thousands that no one ever really mourned for or remembered, and they were buried at night. Enslaved people could not be buried during the day. They could only be buried at night because they had to be at work in the day. So, as I was listening to this wonderful presentation, I thought about words and how words are very powerful and lasting. And as Robert Small said to President Lincoln, the one word, freedom. So the one word for me is remember that your ancestors were Africans and not slaves. They were enslaved by a people that had access to all the laws and all the religious rights claimed by them to enslave hundreds of thousands and over 300 years, millions of people. So I say you should start today by referring to your ancestors, and that's black and white, of all of you, as Africans and not as slaves. Thank you.
Now, I know you've been waiting for this. Everyone have your ticket?
Take your time.
Get it on out.
Okay, we're ready to pull. And we have 6 books. And the reason we only have 6 books is because the books have been selling so fast and with a little glitch of an accident that we just haven't been able to get all the books here for you. But we're going to start with the 6 people and make sure that you get books, and then hopefully we'll get the rest of the books. Is that correct?
Okay, the first number is 799184. Can we read it again? Come down and get your book.
did it.
So the next number, 799176. All right, next ticket, 799183. We're going to go ahead with the next ticket while she's coming down. 799063. Another ticket, 799197. Another ticket, 799189. And another ticket, 799077. All right, another ticket, 799178. Thank you so much for participating in the raffle. Give everybody a round of applause who got them up.
All right, can we have your attention one more time, please? So my name is Mark Fielding, and this is Miss Marlena Husser. And to go ahead right into our presentations, because we know the early college students have to leave, but we would like to present the early college high school students that participated with the song this morning, each a certificate of appreciation, which reads, "Thank you." This certificate of appreciation is presented to, and this one goes to Ms. Leilani Augustine for serving on the for serving on the 2018 Palmer Spotlight Program, signed Luesta A.S. Robinson, Campus Dean, and today's date, February 21st, 2018. And for all of the participants, your names are listed on the back of the program. You can receive them from Ms. Williams or Ms. English. Thank you. Early college students, I'm to understand that you all have to leave to go back to your classes now, so you all can go ahead and be excused right now. Thank you for coming though, but please, as you leave, please still be quiet because we are still in the midst of our program. So if you would please exit quietly, thank you very much. to move along with our presentations, first, Dr. Whitehurst, would you please come forward? If we could give Dr. Whitehurst a round of applause. Thank you. Dr. Whitehurst, I know you wanted to give us more information, but everything that you did was astoundingly amazing. I know that all of us had to have left here today, not just learning more about Mr. Smalls, but I'm certain having a much greater appreciation for his bravery and exactly what he did and how it relates to each of us as a Charlestonians. So on behalf of the committee, we would like to present you, and it's a little heavy, with just a small presentation or gift. Can we give her one more round of applause? And I guess we're probably going to take a picture, so if you wouldn't mind staying. Mr. Green, would you come forth as well? Can we give Mr. Green a round of applause, please? Mr. Green, thank you, first of all, for being here, but then secondly, thank you for your words as well, which were more than inspiring, but also definitely, I think, and I hope that the students were paying attention, but definitely should have given them some sort of basis of understanding for what exactly we're doing here today, and then furthermore, why it's of importance. So thank you for taking your time to come, and on behalf of the committee, we'd like to give you this presentation too. It's got some weight to it, and I guess just so everyone knows, they are TTC bookends that are engraved and everything, so you can put them wherever you guys can find a great spot.
Thank you.
I'll keep it very short, those are hard acts to follow. 150 years ago today, in February of 1868, Robert Smalls was helping to write a new constitution for the state of South Carolina. When it was finished, this remarkable document would mandate free public schools for all children and establish the right to vote for all men, regardless of their race. Women would have to wait until 1919. Smalls served as a United States congressman from 1874 to 1886. In Congress, he pushed for many changes that benefited all of South Carolina. Among them, the development of state ports and railroads, disaster relief, and the recovery of the Citadel, of all things. He was so beloved by his constituents that outsiders teased him about thinking he was a god. No, they like to say, Smalls may not be a god yet, but hey, he's still young. Sadly, Robert Smalls lived to see the South Carolina Constitution of 1868 completely undone by the Constitution of 1895, which legalized segregation, outlawed interracial marriage, and made it possible to strip African Americans of their right to vote. He was, in fact, a member of the team that wrote it, though he was by then part of a tiny minority who could do nothing but protest. And that, in fact, was the reality of Robert Smalls' later life, the constant and relentless erosion of civil rights. But Smalls was brave, persistent, diplomatic, and resourceful to the end. He never lost hope. He never gave up, even in a polarized world when it seemed that freedom and equality were doomed. Thank you for coming to our Spotlight program today. I hope you'll be moved to learn more about Robert Smalls and the turbulent times he lived in. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for participating. Thank you for joining us today. We would like to thank Mr. Jonathan Green, Michael Moore, the Early College High School students, and Miss English, and to you for joining us to commemorate the life and legacy of Mr. Robert Smalls, and for allowing me to preside in today's ceremony. Please join us in the lobby for refreshments, and thank you so much.